Coming up on Glendale today, my guest from Hospice of the Valley and Glendale's Planning Department will discuss the new palliative care unit being built at 59th Avenue, south of Thunderbird. And we'll also hear about the excellent care and services Hospice provides to those with life-limiting illnesses. Hello, I'm Glendale Vice Mayor Steve Freight, and I represent the residents who live in the Saguaro District. Hospice of the Valley was founded in 1977 as a not-for-profit with about a dozen patients. Today is one of the largest nonprofit hospices in the country, caring for about 4,000 people a day, including 850 patients in the West Valley. Though most hospice care is delivered in the home, Hospice of the Valley has palliative care units across the valley for those who need round-the-clock care. We are fortunate to have one of these palliative care units being built right here in Glendale. My guests for the first segment are Diana Murray, Vice President of Facilities and Purchasing at Hospice of the Valley, and John Froke, Glendale's Planning Director, who will tell us about this project. Then later in our program, Mary Beth Gallagher, Director of the Mentorship Program, and Scott Savoy, Vice President of Home Care, will join us. Well, Diana, welcome. John, welcome.
Thank you.
Diana, most of us are familiar with Hospice of the Valley, but for those who aren't, could you give us a brief introduction about hospice?
Absolutely. Hospice of the Valley is a not-for-profit organization. We provide end-of-life care to patients and support to their families. Our team of hospice care professionals work together to meet the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of patients and families facing life-limiting illnesses. Hospice of the Valley is a not-for-profit organization, so all of our funds that remain after paying our expenses monthly go directly back into patient care services, not to shareholders. In addition, our staff are available and on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So anytime somebody calls Hospice of the Valley, they're speaking with a Hospice of the Valley employee, day or night, never an answering service or automated message.
Very good. As I mentioned earlier, most of the hospice care is delivered in the home, but tell us about your facilities and what is a palliative care unit?
A palliative care unit is a place for individuals at end of life to go for limited periods of time. They need round-the-clock nursing care to help manage their symptoms. Many times our patients have recently just discharged from a hospital into our units. Other times they're being cared for at home by a hospice care team and need a period of time where they're receiving more intensive care to help manage their symptoms so that they can return home again. And other times patients come to our facilities so a family caregiver can take a much well-deserved break and take some rest for a few days.
John, why is hospice such a great fit for this area?
Vice Mayor Freight, the hospice facility fits really well from a land use perspective. This is part of the Thunderbird Road medical corridor that was established when the hospital opened at 55th and Thunderbird Road back in 1983. And since then, Glendale's really developed a strong medical corridor, and hospice fits really well from just the overall land use perspective. The site's about 2 acres within really walking distance or a short drive from medical facilities, the hospital, etc. It's a small infill site, about 2 acres, that really ran its course in its prior use as a plant nursery. I'm sure you're familiar with that. What we find in the development of cities is that there's buildings and sites that kind of run its course in terms of how old the building might be or the site might be. The plant nursery that used to be located on the west side of 59th Avenue, just south of Thunderbird Road, fell into some disrepair. It became one of the rare blighted conditions that we have in Glendale, and thanks to the efforts of Hospice and their group, they've cleared the site and a brand new facility will be built, about 10,000 square feet at this location. We're really excited to have Hospice expand into Glendale.
I am too. Now, Diana, tell us about the new Thunderbird Palliative Care Unit.
Well, absolutely. We have been serving the community of Glendale at a leased facility at Thunderbird Medical Center for just a little over a decade. Recently, a decision was made to build a freestanding facility at this site, and the 59th Avenue and Thunderbird locations really just perfectly suited for our needs, both in location and the size of the site. This facility will be a beautiful new facility with the ability to care for up to 16 patients at this location. We'll have a beautiful family room, a kitchen, other smaller spaces indoor and out for patients and families to gather. Our Thunderbird Palliative Care Unit will be modeled after our Lund home, which we constructed several years ago in Gilbert near the Mercy Hospital campus.
Well, I'll tell you, it really looks more like a home than an institution. How do you give it that feel?
We put a lot of thought and care into creating peaceful home-like environments. It's very important to us that our patients and families feel very comfortable and at home in our facilities.
Well, John, this property is considered an infill project. Can you explain what that means and why is it so important?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Infill development is really a description of a property that either never was developed back in a different era of time, or in this case with the hospice site, a property that really is looking to reinvent itself. An infill site is usually a small parcel such as this, 2 acres, that was left over in the last development cycle, or maybe the trend of development has changed in a specific part of town. And a lot of what's happening in Glendale is really infill development. This site is a great example with what hospice plans to do at this location. We have larger infill sites in other parts of the Saguaro District and other parts of Glendale. Another description of infill is that the infrastructure, the roads, the water lines, the sewer lines are already in place, and that makes it attractive for developers and for new tenants such as hospice, because those types of facilities are already really at this site and available for hookup.
Did you run into any issues with this particular project?
Not particularly. There was a slight zoning adjustment that we worked with hospice on, where the office zoning needed to be changed. That went through a pretty simple zoning exercise through Planning Commission and ultimately in front of you and the mayor and the rest of the city council. The project was well received by the neighborhood, and there really were not a lot of issues on this particular project.
Very good. Diana, when will the Thunderbird unit open?
Well, we are working hard and hoping to open the unit in January. When we do open the unit, we'll have an open house and invite the community in for tours, and we do hope you'll be able to join us.
Wow, that's great news. I look forward to coming. And there's other good news, I understand, because Hospice of the Valley was presented with the 2012 Community Champion Award at the Impact Awards luncheon, sponsored, I believe, by the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce. I was going to say congratulations, but yes, congratulations. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We feel very privileged to serve our community, and this award was given to Hospice of the Valley in recognition to our service to the community. We're grateful and proud.
Well, you should be very proud.
Thank you.
You know, there was a video prepared to showcase Hospice of the Valley for the luncheon, and I'd like to show that right now.
Hospice of the Valley has been around for almost 35 years and has actually come to be known as one of the best hospices in the country. We have worked so hard at being exactly what the family wants. We instill in our staff, what kind of care would you want your mother to have? And that's exactly what we do every single day, 365 days a year, 24/7, with live people going to see families in their own homes or in a beautiful inpatient unit. It's a really deeply held value at Hospice of the Valley that we are a part of the community and we have an obligation to take care of the community. Our volunteer department has 2,500 volunteers at this point who donate almost 200,000 hours a year, and that's in a number of different programs. One of my favorites is the 11th Hour program, where we provide somebody to sit with somebody at the time of death and just be a comfort. The pet therapy teams are out all day. We have volunteers that have gone actually and painted people's homes because it was such a mess, or cleaned a patient's home. It can be anything that you want those volunteers to do, and they're doing it 200,000 hours worth a year. A big part of our community involvement is partnerships with other agencies. We have partnerships with Mayo Clinic, with Phoenix Children's Hospital, with something called Circle the City that provides care for homeless people with an illness. We have partnerships that really further the connectivity to the community. We also do a lot of educating for healthcare professionals around the community. Last year, I think we might have done 900 presentations, hoping that that kind of community education then informs everybody that hospice care is available. It's not last-minute, end-of-life, 2-day care. It's a service to the community for the patient's whole illness. I believe that it is the finest kind of service to the community.
And that was Susan Levine, the Executive Director of Hospice of the Valley, who appeared in the video. Now, Diana, the programs like Pet Therapy, 11th Hour Companion, that Susan told us about are really amazing, as well as all your programs. Who pays for hospice services?
Well, Medicare and insurance help cover the cost of our core healthcare services, but donations support patients without insurance or programs not covered by insurance. It's fundamental to our core beliefs that no one in need of hospice service should ever be turned away from those services. Donations help cover special programs in addition to the ones you heard about, such as massage therapy and music therapy, helps cover our grief support groups and pediatric services. Our website was recently redesigned. It's quite easy to use for online donations. Anyone wishing to donate to Hospice of the Valley may do so by visiting hov.org.
Well, I want to thank you both for telling us about Hospice of the Valley's new palliative care unit that will be coming to Glendale and in the Saguaro District. It sounds like plans are well underway, and it's a great fit for the area. You know, as we saw in the video, hospice is much more than a place. It's part of our community. When we come back from our break, we'll talk with Scott Savoy, Vice President of Home Care, and Mary Beth Gallagher, Director of the Dementia Program at Hospice of the Valley. They'll tell us more about the care hospice offers to the community, and we'll also hear about hospice from the patient's point of view. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Luis Gonzalez of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and this is Glendale.
Welcome back to Glendale Today. My guests for this segment are Scott Savoy, Vice President of Home Care, and Mary Beth Gallagher, Director of Dementia Program at the Hospice of the Valley. I'd like you both to start out by introducing yourselves. Scott, why don't you begin?
Like you said, my name is Scott Savoy, Vice President of Home Care Operations at Hospice of the Valley. I've been at Hospice of the Valley since 1996. I became a registered nurse in 1993. I also have a master's degree in educational leadership. When I was in nursing school, I had an opportunity to do a clinical rotation on a hospice inpatient unit, and that experience really stuck with me. I felt that I connected with patients in a very different way. And when I had an opportunity to come to Hospice of the Valley in 1996, it fulfilled that passion for me. And I've had opportunities to work in a variety of positions there. My current position as Vice President of Home Care Operations has me overseeing the care delivery of patients in their home setting.
Do you do that throughout the valley, or do you have
Yes, we cover all of Maricopa County and northern Pinal County. Wherever the patient is at, it could be in their own private residence, an assisted living facility, a group home, long-term care facilities. Wherever a patient calls home, we will be there.
You know, in our last segment, Diana gave us a brief description of hospice. Do you want to expand on her thoughts?
The mission of Hospice of the Valley is to provide comfort and dignity as life nears its end. The best way for us to do that is meet the patient wherever the patient is at in their disease process. And it's as simple as asking the question, what do you need? What are your goals? What do you know about your disease process? How can we help you? And then ask the family, what are your goals? What do you need? How can we help you? And it's really stepping back as healthcare practitioners and listening, because traditionally healthcare practitioners kind of tell what needs to happen, as opposed to stepping back and saying, how can we help you? And we do that with an interdisciplinary approach. We have physicians, nurse practitioners like Mary Beth, we have nurses, chaplains, social workers, nursing assistants, volunteers, a variety of disciplines, bereavement counselors. And we approach the patient from a variety of angles. That way we can help them surface up what their goal is, help them meet the needs that they feel are their needs. And it's their needs, it's not our needs. It's not what we want, it's what they want. We also offer disease-specific programs like dementia, which Mary Beth will talk about, cardiac programs for congestive heart failure, which is a long continuum of a disease process, and pulmonary resource programs as well.
Wow, that's a lot of information. Mary Beth, tell us a little about your background.
Well, I started out as a registered nurse, but then I had a rare opportunity to become a professional singer for many years and traveled internationally.
You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much.
But then what happened was I had a family member who was diagnosed with dementia. And so I started to become one of the caregivers for her, and that was a life-changing experience. Because of that experience, it inspired me to go back to school and get my master's degree and become a nurse practitioner in psychiatry, and then eventually to complete my doctoral studies as well. The interesting part of the journey was that I didn't even know that there was a hospice benefit for patients who had dementia. And so when my loved one reached end of life, Hospice of the Valley turned out to be the hospice that served her. And more than any other time in her disease trajectory, this is when she seemed the most comfortable in body, mind, and spirit. And Hospice of the Valley also helped us as the caregivers who were heartbroken watching her go through this experience. So once my loved one died, I knew that I wanted to become a member of Hospice of the Valley team and focus on people who have dementia and their families to provide excellent care.
Sounds like you've applied your singing talent to caring for your patients, and it looks like they really enjoy it.
They do. Sometimes, I don't know if you're aware of this, but people who lose their ability to speak can still sing. And so we celebrate that fact at Hospice of the Valley with our dementia patients and try to provide music every single day to optimize their well-being.
So they may not be able to conversation, but if they hear a familiar song, they know the words and sing along.
Yes, and so it's not only wonderful for them to hear their own voice and to do something successfully, but it's also amazing for the family to sit there, to hold hands, and to share songs.
And be able to sing with them, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Scott, many people think of hospice as something for people that are at the very end of their life, but I know that isn't the case. How can you tell when it's time for hospice?
And that's a great question, and it's a common misconception that hospice is just for days or weeks left in a person's life, when in reality, patients who have a life-limiting disease process with a life expectancy of 6 months or less, they qualify for hospice care if they're no longer seeking curative or aggressive treatments. They've chosen to step back from that curative modality, that aggressive modality, because continuation of it won't be successful, and they feel for themselves and for their family that approaching a holistic plan of care, a plan of care that focuses on the patient spiritually, emotionally, physically, is more a course of action that they want to take. So patients with a life expectancy of less than 6 months qualify for hospice care. In addition to that, Hospice of the Valley has a program called Arizona Palliative Home Care. That allows us to engage with patients around 18 months out with their diagnosis. So nurses can go out to the patient's home and help them manage their disease process a little bit differently than we do on hospice. These patients typically have higher levels of functioning and are probably still engaged in the community, seeing their practitioners. And we work with the practitioner in the home setting to keep the patient out of the hospital, to meet their needs in those kind of settings, and work with them to help the patient reach their goals. As their disease process progresses, then we look, when is that time for them to come on to hospice? And all the while we're working with them on their goals, what's important for them, what is it that they need, how do we help them manage these last year and a half to 6 months to days to weeks of life.
Wow. I think the best person to explain this is a hospice patient. So we're going to hear from Susie Coyle, who is a cancer patient in the hospice program.
I am Susie Coyle, and I'm a patient at Hospice of the Valley. I was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, and I was encountering more and more complications as this disease spread. I went to my oncologist, and I said, well, now, what's now? And he says, we can give you massive doses of chemo, and the quality of your life will not be good. And I said, okay, I've had 5 children. I've been sick through all of those. And I thought, I don't choose to leave this world vomiting. Hospice of the Valley was really the one I had always heard was the best. Hospice of the Valley, people say, you got to make sure you say Hospice of the Valley, because it is, you know, and I'm convinced of it. Well, I get nursing care every week. I have a staff of 3 nurses, just darling. I'm convinced I've got the best ones that they have. But they come, one of them comes once a week. And then I've even had the doctor come and visit me, which was novel. I said, that's kind of like the old days when my dad used to go to homes, and precious young thing, and she was just, and that's when I had my blood clot, and she's sitting on the floor in my living room checking my foot, you know. And then they had the Doppler come in and do my x-ray, and then did my blood work in the house. And instead of, as a patient, in modern day medicine, we're going everywhere. We're racing to this, and then we wait for results for sometimes better than a week. And you're hanging sometimes on things that are just vital to your life. And even though the medical system is broken, really, if everyone could be treated like I am in hospice, it would just be wonderful. It'd be so easy. And like I said, they delivered medicine once at 11 o'clock at night. They've done that actually a couple times. And even like when the nurses are here, if they've got a question, while they're sitting with me, they'd speak with the doctor. Then while they're sitting with me, she then returns the call. It just blows your mind. The chaplain provides emotional support for me at different, I'm sure it's different stages that I will be experiencing also. You know, my needs for him will be at different times. You gotta call. And you really do. Anybody that's just questioning it, and get rid of that idea that hospice means the end. It's helpful at all stages, and it just makes the quality of your life, you know, just so much better. And that's their goal, truthfully. They want to get you back up on your feet. It isn't necessarily to create the end of your life, but it's to give you peace all the way through.
Well, that's a wonderful testimonial. Mary Beth, Susan Coyle has made a very deliberate decision, but the dementia patients you work with aren't really able to communicate their wishes. For those who don't understand dementia, can you describe it for us?
Sure. Well, most people don't understand that there are many, many types of dementia. The most common form of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. And Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurodegenerative disease, meaning that over time it is a terminal diagnosis. What happens in Alzheimer's disease is that there's a decline in a person's memory and also in other thinking skills, insight, judgment, reasoning, their ability to use words to express themselves and to understand words of others, and also their ability to function, those simple day-to-day tasks that we do without even thinking about it. Finally, a person is unable to do that as well.
Can Hospice of the Valley help families of dementia patients? Can you give me some examples?
Hospice of the Valley can really help families of dementia patients. First of all, we can help them understand the disease better, because most people don't really understand what's going on inside this person's brain and how it causes the person to think differently, to perceive differently, and to behave differently. We can help families avoid confrontation, to prevent behaviors, and most importantly, we can help families see that the person is still inside there, and that they can experience love and joy and laughter through different approaches, and we help them understand how to perform those.
Very good. Can you give us an example of special customized care a patient might receive?
Yes. First of all, you can't provide excellent advanced dementia care if you don't know who you're taking care of. So we have to know the patient, but the patient can't tell us about themselves. So we created a form called the About Me form, and it describes who the person is, what has meaning, what has purpose for them, and of the 5 senses, what are the things that bring them pleasure? Do they love chocolate? Do they love to hear the Lord's Prayer recited? And we use this information every single day in the day-to-day care so that we optimize their well-being and maximize their comfort.
Wow. How does caring for the dementia patient fit within the framework of hospice then? How do you, like this palliative care unit, is it at that time, or you're in the home first, or is it a combination?
We will be wherever it is that the patient calls home, or if they're temporarily in a palliative care unit, that's where we will be as well. The dementia care at Hospice of the Valley aligns perfectly, beautifully with the hospice principles of bringing comfort and dignity as life nears its end.
I understand you have a lot of volunteers. Scott, maybe you could, do you know how many volunteers you have throughout the community?
Yes,
what do they do?
We have around 2,600 volunteers. They provide around 180,000 hours of volunteer services to Hospice of the Valley a year. And honestly, they're the lifeblood of the agency. They come in from the community for a variety of reasons, either personal experiences or they have an interest in hospice or they knew someone who knew hospice. We have pet therapy volunteers. We have around 200 therapists along with their pet volunteers as kind of a cohort. We have a veterans program where we come out and do a pinning ceremony for veterans, which I personally experienced with my grandfather who died recently. An amazing ceremony, very moving. We also have teen volunteers. My son is actually a teen volunteer at Ryan House. And any way that we can meet a patient at the level that they're at, where they're at, we find volunteers that will do that. We have an 11th hour program for people who don't have a family member, because sometimes that happens. They get to the point where they're at their end of life and there's not a family member there, and we'll sit with them in their last hours or days of life and just hold their hands, just be present. Volunteers are really what make Hospice of the Valley as unique as it is today, in addition to the dementia programs and the other services that we offer.
What I notice, everything's done with dignity.
Yes.
The patient, the family, and what I like too is how you have the interaction with the family, because family is very hard for them to, this has never happened to them before, so they're having a tough time coping, and that's where you guys come in.
I think one of the things with dignity, which is a great point, sometimes people indirectly aren't treated with dignity during their disease process. Healthcare workers focus on the disease process, and sometimes we forget there's a person back there. And we have an opportunity, once they come onto hospice, to really regain that perception of their own dignity, that they are a human, that they're not a disease process, that they have love, they have feelings, they have emotions, and they have a family. And in other cases, some patients have never been treated with dignity during their lives. They've struggled for a variety of reasons, and when they come to Hospice of the Valley, we're not for profit. Regardless of a person's ability to pay, we are going to provide them with services, and that may be one of the few times in their life that they've received dignity in any way, shape, or form, and it's a privilege to be able to do that.
Scott, who is eligible for hospice care?
That's a great question. Anyone who is concerned about their disease process, they think that they might qualify for hospice or Arizona palliative home care, to please contact us. We're happy to talk with them, to talk with their practitioners, to talk with family members. We'll come to their home. We'll do it over the phone, however they would like to engage with us. They can also access through our new website.
You know, we're about out of time, and I want to thank you both for being here today. I think today's program was wonderful. It's a need that I think more and more people hopefully will use for their loved ones. If you or someone you love is in need of hospice services, please visit the website or give them a call. You can also ask your doctor to put you in touch. And one last thought, the children are back to school and will be cooling down soon, but please don't let your guard down. Always watch those little ones around water. See you next time on Glendale Today.